He would send his winnings home to Mother, but she never knew where it came from. She would have been horrified. John married Dorothy Kendall. They had 6 children. The oldest, Catherine Ann, born November 20th, 1953, was born while John was in the service. He was 21 years old. Then Janice Marie, Doreen Sue, Joseph, Lori Jean, and John Jr. John built Hardwick Motors in Hardwick, Vermont in the mid-60s, and he sold Fords for many years. John was divorced from Dottie about 1967. He then married Julia Alice Doyle Tremblay of Chelsea, Vermont, on August 10, 1968. However, this union did not last. John divorced from his second wife in the mid-1980s. He sold his dealership and moved to Las Vegas to retire. Some of his children followed him west, and these days he enjoys spending time with his 10 grandchildren and 6 great-grandchildren. Howard Elmer was born January 21st, 1934, in Lyme, New Hampshire. February 11th, 1959, he married Velma Nutting. They had 3 boys, Dennis David, born September 1st, 1959, Timothy Allen, born November 15th, 1960, in South Ruslip, England, and Ronald Howard, born June 25th, 1963, at Maryland Air Force Base. Howard completed 20 years of service to the Air Force in 1974. During his time, he served in the Philippines and Okinawa during the Korean conflict.
The only one I ever saw close with Dad was Howard. When he got out of the service, well, he was in the service, I'm sorry. He'd come home for furlough or whatever, and they became drinking buddies. But they became quite close, so even when they were not drinking. The only one I ever saw that knew how to control him, I guess.
David said his brother Howard was hard to please. Craig says Howard walked to the beat of his own drum. He was probably the most meticulous man that ever walked this planet. The house was always neat as a pin, and weeds were not to be found anywhere on his property, garden or lawn. Every blade of grass stood at attention, as if it were saluting him.
It was on that oxygen thing, off and on. He got very, very depressed. He was telling me he quit smoking. Didn't feel good. Very depressed, I guess. And the boss, the owner, came in and said, "Howard, you look like shit." He said, "Well, I feel like shit, too. Why don't you light up a cigarette? Maybe you'll feel better. You've given up everything he did. He smoked ever since. He done hits his oxygen, have a cigarette, and then hits it back up again." People would say, "What in the hell is wrong with you?" He said, "Don't worry about it. You're looking at a dead man anyway."
Overwhelmed by feelings of guilt and inadequacy for not being able to care for his wife, Velma, after her cancer diagnosis, and faced with the probability that he too would need help taking care of himself during his own illness, Howard took his life December 2nd, 2002. Nettie DeGouche was born May 19th, 1935, in Hanover, New Hampshire. Dad called her Kateri. Nettie graduated high school in 1954. She attended Hesser College in Manchester, New Hampshire for 1 year, taking classes of the secretarial business nature. She received a certificate and today claims her degree is in life experience. After college, she moved back home and worked for a year to pay her student loan. She was 21 years old when she married Glenn Ackerman at Lyme Congregational Church, September 15th, 1956. They went together for 4 years before they were married. She worked at Rogers Garage doing secretarial work until her son Larry was born July 11th, 1959. And later Ellen Marie was born November 20th, 1960. They lived in Piermont, New Hampshire. Nettie is all about entertaining. She loves company and she loves to cook. There is always more food than any army could eat. Nettie and Babe have lived in Fairleigh, Vermont, and spent 27 years in Piermont, New Hampshire, where they reside today, married more than 50 years. Kent Keyes was born December 30th, 1936, in Lyme, New Hampshire. When Kent was 2 years old, he apparently was very proud of being 2.
When I was 2, when I was supposed to turn 3, I think it was Uncle Rob that was there, but I can't remember. Some uncle, as I recall, was there. And somebody had him ask me how old I was, and I said I was 2. So it stuck, and I was 2 for another year.
Kent graduated high school in 1956. He enlisted in the National Guard while in high school, a choice he would later recall to be the biggest waste of time in his life. Kent married Beatrice Nutting at Bradford Methodist Church in Bradford, New Hampshire, November 15, 1958. They had 2 daughters, Peggy Lee, October 12, 1959, and Penny Sue, October 11, 1963, and 1 son, Bradley David DeGouche, May 7, 1975. Kent and Bee lived in Bradford, Vermont. Kent worked for Cummings Construction Company. He traveled a lot for work. Usually, he was gone all week, could come home late Friday night, and then Sunday afternoon he was gone again. Kent and Bee divorced. Currently, Kent is married to Jean Anderson Hibbard. They were married in 1979. He is an antiques dealer living in Richford, Vermont. He has a workshop out of his garage where he masterfully restores old pieces to sell at antique shows. Nancy was born August 19, 1938, in Hanover, New Hampshire. Dad called her Muffet. She married Richard Doyle at Lyme, New Hampshire, December 22, 1957. She was 19. They were married at the farmhouse. Dick and Nancy had 2 boys, Terrence Bryan, February 22, 1959, and Daniel David, born December 5, 1960. They had 1 daughter, Paula, born April 1, 1965. Dick and Nancy divorced. Nancy worked for the U.S. Postal Service and retired as postmaster of the Hill Post Office in New Hampshire. Then Nancy married Dean Radke. They are living out their golden years in Reno, Nevada. The youngest child, David Pushy DeGouche, was born August 25, 1940, in Lyme, New Hampshire. Because of the war, David didn't meet Cobe, Dick, and Stub until he was 5 years old. David was close enough in age to walk to school with his nieces and nephews.
We would do things together, constantly. And when they lived there in Sand Hill, I was in 7th or 8th grade when they started school. And I'd walk up to Ann Roscoe's with them for lunch.
Until he transferred to Thetford High School from Orford High School for his senior year after one of his teachers humiliated him in class.
He humiliated me in front of the whole class one day. Why I didn't walk out, I don't know. I didn't walk out until the period was over, and then I never went back. I went to sleep during the history class. It was when my mother was sick. We were up all hours of the night.
Oh, yeah.
It's not hard for me to go to sleep in history class, and I did. He made me stand up beside his desk in front of the class. And I can't believe to this day I didn't just walk right out right then.
David graduated high school in 1959. David married Rita Brown, June 9, 1963, whom he met at Thetford High School. David and Rita had 2 children, a son, Craig, born December 10, 1965, and Christy Lee, born March 24, 1968. Then they moved to their current house while it was still under construction, where they have been for 40 years. According to most, David was the best carpenter in the area by far. He loved it and made a good living at it. He retired from carpentry due to health reasons, but among other accomplishments, he built a handicap-accessible bathroom in his brother Dick's house after Dick's stroke. He also built a house for John after his burned in Hardwick. The children of Howard and Nettie DeGouche had a hard life. But most would agree it was a good life. There was happiness and hardships, joy and tragedy, good times and bad. They became smokers and drinkers, and some of them suffered the consequences for these actions, while others overcame these challenges. That was the worst of their offenses. They became parents and raised children. They produced a rather respectable bunch of offspring. There are a lot of exceptional people in this family. They are a group that includes doctors, nurses, EMTs, farmers, foster parents, and social workers. Most would agree that there is a strong sense of faith in God and family. Through the years and the miles, the 13 have always tried to maintain strong family ties. Now, hopefully, you understand where you got your stunning good looks, your dry sense of humor, your love of life and laughter. Now I leave you to fill in the blanks and continue the story. Now there are 38 cousins to the children of the 13. I hope the stories continue to be passed on and added to. We all survive as long as our memories do. I pray you all live for generations to come. God bless you.
She was working sun up to sundown.
Your mother?
Yeah.
Well, it must be
You know, in
just,
the house, you know, washing, cleaning, cooking, feeding the kids, and mending,
And
and
doing
find time to
laundry.
go to the hen house and gather eggs, feed the chickens,
And doing
all
laundry for
vegetable.
Camp Pinnacle
and,
and
yeah,
cooking raspberry pies.
yeah.
yeah.
Right.
No, she wasn't a slouch for any means.
You mean you?
While you were living there, you were, you know, just another fixture, if you wish. There was never any kindness, closeness. Mother was just the opposite.
Boy. So I
I
don't know.
don't remember him calling any of us by name.
She
We were
must-
always boys.
Yeah.
Time to go, boys. Time to milk the cow, time to do chores, time to hay. It was always 3 days late, no matter what we were doing. It was not a very close relationship there.
It
At least with
wasn't?
me,
It was not?
And I never saw it with any of the other siblings either. We never knew each other until we left the farm.
Basically.
Like, my dad wasn't close with any of the kids.
Kicked out.
They were all, again, they had to do something. If you didn't do it, you were on his shit list if you wished.
Yeah.
But I just had so much sympathy for the guy that everything he touched seemed like it was turned bad.
Really?
You know, I mean, he's got 13 kids and only 13 cows, and you need 1,013 to support the 13 kids. So
Yeah. Was it a small herd? Do you?
I think the most I remember ever having was like 45 or 50 milking.
Oh, that's more than we had.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that was a short time period.
Yeah.
Maybe when I was late grade school.
Yeah.
Most of the time it was 25, 30